everyone, welcome to another video. The intro is going to be in Spanish, but then the rest of the video is going to continue in English. Muy buenas chicos, bienvenidos a este vídeo. Sí, un vídeo en inglés, pero un vídeo en inglés por una buena razón. Y quiero explicaros el qué me ha llevado a tomar la decisión de hacer este vídeo en inglés y también deciros que por favor me dejéis en los comentarios qué es lo que opináis, porque dependiendo de vuestro feedback podemos repetir esto o no volver a hacerlo nunca. Ya veré, depende de lo que me digáis. Bien. Muchos me habéis pedido una guía de Alakazam y no es de extrañar, o sea, Alakazam es una carta divertidísima, es una carta poderosísima, pero que también os digo es tremendamente complicada de jugar, porque ya no solo necesitas tener unas capacidades matemáticas, estadísticas enormes, sino que tienes que también tener muy claro exactamente cuál es el game plan cuando estás jugando contra determinados mazos. Pero no podemos obviar que Alakazam ha estado haciéndolo muy bien en los torneos, a pesar de que exista Mewtwo, a pesar de que exista la Enhanced Energy, etc. Y creo que ha alcanzado su máximo nivel de popularidad cuando consiguió ganar el regional de Indianápolis hace un par de meses en una partida además súper épica contra Crustle. Cuando yo me planteé hacer la guía de Alakazam, tenía claro que el piloto tenía que ser alguien que conociera el deck de pe a pa. Y sí, no digo que no haya jugadores españoles, o que de habla hispana, que manejen perfectamente el deck que creó Keris Jones para llevarlo a lo más alto en este regional. Pero es que se dio la posibilidad, literalmente, de grabar con la propia creadora del deck, con Keris, que es una chica de Estados Unidos, y ya no solo es que sea una jugadora hiper reconocida, o sea, si no suena su nombre, es que lo único que tenéis que hacer es literal, ¿vale? O sea, he hecho el ejercicio y he flipado. Está en el puesto 10 del mundo, con casi 1600 CPs. O sea, consigue tú 1600 CPs. Entonces, ya os he dicho en varias ocasiones que además mi obsesión es traer chicas para poder darles visibilidad y poder animar a más gente a que se una a este juego. Y cuando Keris me dijo que se grababa una guía conmigo, pues fue como ¡ay! Obviamente. Así que, claro, el problema es que Keris no habla español, así que hemos tenido que hacer la entrevista en inglés. Por eso os digo que para mí es muy importante que me deis feedback, porque si os gusta este tipo de contenidos y realmente queréis ver algunas personas que han sido los inventores de determinados decks, yo creo que los puedo traer al canal, pero tienen que ser en otro idioma. Os va a tocar, pues bueno, poner los subtítulos y todo eso, pero bueno, ya me diréis. Es que creo que realmente además el valor de todo lo que ha explicado Keris ha sido brutal. Tenéis que estar además muy atentos a cómo explica las cosas, porque en un minuto te dice perfectamente cuál es el game plan contra Mewtwo, contra Honchkrow y cómo ganas a todos estos mazos con Alakazam. Una barbaridad. Espero que este vídeo os ayude a entender un poquito mejor... Uy, perdón. Bueno, que no pasa nada, son los comentarios de YouTube, pero no debería haber puesto esto. Espero que este vídeo os ayude a entender un poquito mejor cómo funciona Alakazam, porque insisto, es un mazo muy complejo, porque no es un mazo agro, es un mazo que tienes que saber perfectamente cuándo atacas y cuándo no atacas. Y también aprovecho para deciros otra cosa tremendamente importante, y es que una de las personas que mejor juega de todo el mundo que yo conozco, y aparte que es una persona maravillosa, que es Aldra, otra chica que también ha estado aquí con nosotros grabando Dragapult, ojalá Aldra quiera, hashtag Aldra vuelve, ojalá Aldra se quiera volver a pasar. Ella hizo una guía que además tuve la oportunidad de leerla un poco en primicia y la verdad que es una pasada. Es completamente gratis, es una guía de 40 páginas explicando cómo se secuencia con Alakazam. Es verdad que todos los fundamentos se pueden aplicar a otros decks, pero creo que si juntáis todo lo que os va a explicar Keris junto con la secuenciación que os explica Aldra y lo juntáis, es mejor que cualquier otro vídeo que podáis ver de Alakazam. O sea, os lo digo de corazón. Así que, de nuevo, decidme qué os parece. Yo estoy, pues la verdad, bastante contenta y todavía un poco sorprendida de poder haber traído a la creadora de Alakazam Control al canal. Ojalá os guste y ya me diréis, porque si os mola este tipo de vídeos, pues podríamos intentar seguir trayendo a más pros al canal. Y oye, quién sabe, igual se pasa Torrayclef a explicarnos Zoroark Books. Yo lo dejo ahí. Vamos ya directamente con el vídeo. Hello everyone!
Hola, buenas chicos.
Oh my god, you did Amazing, Caris. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for connecting to this video. And yes, I know that I am not speaking Spanish. It will be nice English chat for the next couple of minutes, but it cannot be helped because the person that I have with me, I am so thrilled to have someone like Caris Jones joining us for, discussion on Alakazam. I don't even know if that is how you pronounce that name in English. But Caris, thank you so much. And how are you?
I'm great, and thank you for having me.
I mean, how can I not have you? I am still kind of wrapping my head around the fact that you were okay with recording this with me. I've been putting a lot of effort in this type of videos. We have been able to get some really cool players speaking about their favorite decks, and I think that everyone kind of knows the type of relationship that you have with Alakazam. So I think that there is not a better player in the world to speak about this deck, to speak about the strengths, weaknesses. So yeah, overall, I am really, really excited to have you here. And hopefully you will have a funny time too, speaking about Alakazam. Then no worries. I'm not forcing you to speak any more Spanish. Unless you want. Okay, so maybe we can get started because as you guys probably know, you already know the drill. So the idea is that we bring here people that are really experts in a specific field. In this case, it's a Pokemon deck. And in case that you live under a rock and you don't know who Caris Jones is, I'm going to let her maybe introduce herself. But needless to say that she's one of the most recognizable or well-known names in the competitive scene.
Yeah, so my name is Karis. I've been playing Pokemon for 11 years now. Started playing competitively in regional tournaments after the events returned from COVID. I recently aged up. This is my second season in the Masters division. So I played a little while in seniors and then a little while in Masters. Definitely took a little bit for me to get used to playing in the older division. But this season, I feel like I really started to improve a lot and find my place in the tournaments. So it's been a lot of fun.
Wow, so 11 years playing Pokemon. Actually, that, before I go to the next question, how or when did you decide that you wanted to start playing a little bit more, not seriously, because I don't know exactly if you played a little bit more for fun with friends, but how was this shift of saying, I am going to start going to regionals and competing and seeing what I can do?
Yeah, so basically, over COVID, I practiced a ton of Pokemon, and that is what got me through it. I played in every single online tournament I could, just played many games of Pokemon. And I really started to love playing the game. So then when events returned, I said, you know what, I'll try going to one regional for it, see how it goes. And I made it to a top 8 winning in. So I was like, okay, well now I need to start going to a couple more. And then the next one I made, top 10. So that's kind of what kickstarted it and made me see, hey, I actually can play this competitively. So then the next season, I decided to go for my Worlds invite. And yeah, I've just been going since then.
What was your first deck?
My first deck was Meteor Max.
Oh, okay. Well, it was a pretty strong deck, honestly. One of my favorite as well. Wow.
I love playing that deck so much. That's what I got my regional win in seniors with. So it always holds a special place.
And speaking about your season, man, what a run you've had. I remember I checked your CPs and your leaderboard position, but I now forgot exactly in which rank you are sitting. But I think that you are one of the top players in the entire world. So when the season was starting and you decided that you wanted to go for Worlds again, did you expect all of this?
I don't think I expected to have as good of a season as I did. I made 3 top 4 better placements, which I definitely wouldn't have expected for myself. I think I got pretty fortunate with what decks ended up being strong in this meta, that they really fit my personal play style. So that helped me have a little bit of a better season than I was expecting. But yeah, it's just been crazy.
No, I can imagine, because seeing your names alongside some legends like Torreklev and the likes, it makes you feel really, really proud. And well, allow me to say that everyone here in the Spanish community, they really respect you as a player, and everyone is always cheering on you when you won Indianapolis with Alakazam. Everyone, like every social network, was going crazy. So yeah, that's completely deserved. By the way, speaking about your feats over the past few months, something that you are very famous for, which I don't know if you are aware of how viral the content around Ichipollen has gone, is there was this really, really iconic game in which you were playing against, was it Goldengo? I think?
Yeah, Goldengo.
It was a Goldengo player, and you completely decked him out with the power of attacking with Ichipollen. So I was scrolling around TikTok and other social networks, and the amount of edits that they have of you and Ichipollen, it's hilarious. I don't know, have you seen those?
I've seen a couple, yeah.
Well, that was one of the highlights, I would say, of the entire season. One of these moments that people go like, oh wow. And they say that Vario is not a broken card. Well, I do think it is.
I disagree.
I mean, but you didn't play during the XY era, right? Where when item lock,
Just casually.
that was one of the craziest formats I remember, because we had so many decks that could item lock you, and not only item lock you as we have now, because right now tools, they are not considered items, so you can still play tools under item lock. But we had Seismitoad, we had Trevenant, we had Vileplume. All of them could execute item lock, sometimes in turn 1 and sometimes in turn 0. So that is why when people complain about Vario, it's like, could be worse. I mean, it could be Seismitoad or Trevenant, so it is not that bad. Stop complaining. Now, I think that one of the decks that, of course, people always relate you with is Alakazam, because that is the one that you used to win Indianapolis. But the reality is that I've been looking at your tournament history, and you've changed decks quite a bit. So I really wanted to ask you, because I think that is one of the questions that new players always have, which is, how do you know if there is a right choice when preparing for a tournament? How do you, for instance, what is your thought process when it comes to deciding what is your pick?
Yeah, so usually I try and play a deck that I'm comfortable with, right? Like, if I already have experience with the deck, I'm more likely to do better. I understand how it looks best for 3 time-wise, when I need to speed up, and you just feel more comfortable with it. So I had played in the Melbourne regional a week before Indianapolis. I played Dragapult for top 32. It was good. So I was planning to play Dragapult again. And then just sitting in the hotel room, right after Melbourne, I was looking at his Alakazam list, and I'm like, why are they playing Dodo Cage? It just doesn't do anything. Like, this doesn't look like it's going to be effective versus Dragapult. You're using 6 cards months to check for Dragapult, and it's not doing anything. So I just copied the Alakazam list into a deck editor, and I just took out all the battle cages and the Robska line, and I chucked in the Nighttime Mine, and put an Elgyem in here, and basically just threw something together. Because I was like, you can fix this deck, it must be better than that. And I started playing games on the ladder, and I'm just like, hang on a minute, this is working. But Alakazam was a deck that I had never played before. And I have another regional in 5 days. So I just had to start playing as many games of Alakazam as I possibly could. So I stayed up until like 3 in the morning every day, just playing as many games, because if I was going to play such a new and risky deck, I needed to be 100% certain that it was really strong. So I just tried to play as many games as I possibly could with it in that week. And I did end up sending it because it had done really well in the games that I practiced it with. And it worked out, so it was okay. usually when I'm picking a deck, biggest thing is just you need to trust your gut instincts. If your gut is telling you a deck isn't the right choice, then don't flip it. That I'm getting good vibes from Alakazam, so I sent it.
Wow, what a story. In fact, the very first time that I heard about Nighttime Mine, because honestly, it is not a card that I usually had in mind. But the very first video of this series that we recorded, it was with Marcos Cifuentes, the player from Chile. And he told me that it was a card that he was including in his Zoroark decks because it was really the best way to counter Dragapult. And funny how, after some months, the world learned about that stadium because of you. So I really think that it was a fantastic choice to play Alakazam. And we are going to discuss about your options now in a little bit more detail. But why didn't you play Dragapult like the rest of the world?
I don't know. I mean, I guess because it wasn't as fun to me. The format was starting to feel a little bit stale almost. And I wanted to play something that I was gonna have a good time with. And I really trusted that deck against Dragapult. So I said, as long as I, dodge the matchups that I don't want to hit the first few rounds when I make it to the Dragapult bracket, I should be having a good time. So.
Well, and you absolutely did. Now, I'd love for you to explain us a little bit more why you think that Alakazam is a powerful choice. Yeah, funny. I sometimes make jokes. Well, whatever. Sorry. But the thing is that you decided to go for a deck that it is not that popular. I mean, it is not that people don't know what Alakazam does, but it is true that it has some difficult matchups against the across the board. So Alakazam has a lot of great things to it. It provides you with draw, and then it has the ability of placing damage counters and literally obliterate anything that is in the board. But why do you think that the deck is worth playing?
So Alakazam obviously gets the advantage of the other one prize decks, right? Where your opponent needs to take many more knockouts, which naturally gives you more time in the game. So when you pair that with a deck that's as flexible as Alakazam, it makes it really strong because Alakazam is able to one-shot any Pokemon in the game, as long as they don't have the ability to prevent it or something. But which a lot of one prize decks can struggle with. Sometimes they need to go for a two-hit approach. So Alakazam has that. And when you are going to miss an attack, because of the Dunsparce allowing you to promote any Pokemon that you want, the deck is very flexible. So you don't need to just sacrifice an Alakazam. You can just wait until next turn to hit it. And go in with a different one prize Pokemon like Dedenne or Elgyem, and go for a more defensive route. So yeah, I think its flexibility is something that a lot of one prize decks don't have. They're often kind of locked into one certain game plan. So that combined with being able to one-shot anything, I think is what makes Alakazam so strong.
Actually, you just read my mind, because that was exactly the next thing that I wanted to discuss with you about Alakazam, that to me, it is not your regular one prize deck. Meaning, we all know that one prizers have a difficult time in this format because of Dragapult and all the shenanigans that, Phantom Drive brings to the game. But the reality is that one prizers, most of them, what they focus on doing is winning the prize race. Why? Because they can either get a KO on a 2-prizer, or sometimes even into a 3-prizer. But honestly, I was checking all the relevant one prize decks that we have available right now. So Festival Lead, we have Honchkrow, we have maybe Trevenant, maybe Okidogi. Well, that is a little bit of a stretch. But the reality is that these decks, they can only do one thing, which is attack. And that's it. They cannot change the game plan throughout the game. And that is why I think that the build that you were able to come up with Alakazam is really interesting, because it completely separates from the linear style of playing that, for instance, Honchcrow proposes. So if you compare what you need to do with Alakazam with a festival lead deck, doesn't have anything to do. And I find that really, really interesting. So I feel that this is something that's an important message for everyone watching this video, that if you expect to play Alakazam in the same way that you play Honchcrow, you're going to fail.
That was I agree. It's very different from most of the one prize decks right now.
Yeah, and I also think that Alakazam is really, really unique in different senses. First of all, I think that it's one of the only decks that we have right now that doesn't deal damage. They place damage counters, so which has advantages and of course disadvantages. But then the other thing that I would love for you to speak a little bit about is about the sequencing, because honestly, I know that I can maybe get with my friends, play some games, play in Alakazam, and maybe even win an event. But like to play it perfectly, to do the maths, to understand exactly when you need to play one card and when you need to play the other, or whether you change the order and how that affects the probabilities of hitting something that you want, it is really intense. Like how were you able to keep up that mental exercise or that mental effort throughout an entire tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I had a pretty bad headache after the day one. It was pretty rough. Yeah, I honestly think that Indianapolis was the tournament that my play had the most room for improvement the whole season, because Alakazam is that difficult to play. Because like obviously you can just draw as many cards and then knock out sometimes, right? And that's fine. But there are some situations where you really need to find a specific card. Let's say I need to find a Psychic Energy this turn, or I'm going to miss attack, but I also still need to get to 16 cards. Then it becomes very complicated because you need to be calculating exactly how much you can draw with how many cards you can play. Like, obviously, if I'm trying to find a Psychic Energy, I would like to play the Dawn to thin out the non-Psychic Energy cards from my deck. But can I play the Dawn, or do I need to, wait and hold my cards? And also, it's just a lot to manage. And like, do I use a Dudunsparce before a Kadabra, right? Depends on whether you want to draw back into the Dudunsparce or not draw back into the Dudunsparce. And it just gets really, really, really complicated very quickly. Because you need to basically calculate how many cards you're going to be at the end of your turn, at your first action, so you know how many other cards you're allowed to play.
A good friend.
It's a lot.
I was just going to say that a good friend of mine, she recently released some sort of sequencing guide using Alakazam as an example. And
I think I saw that.
You did? Oh, well, it was in Spanish, so I don't know if you understood it, but it was a really, really nice, very professional, and very statistically accurate approach to Alakazam. And it came with certain exercises, like, okay, so now you need to find the probability of hitting a Psychic Energy, and this is the conditions of the game, blah, blah, blah. And I remember doing these exercises, and I was like, man, no, I need a piece of paper, and why am I back to a math exam? So doing that through what, 13, 16 rounds? No, thank you.
Yeah, so I think I played 17 rounds in the 2 days, and you have 15 seconds to decide.
And what is really infuriating is that sometimes the difference between doing something statistically correct or not is like just a 5%. So it's like, well, whatever. I'd just rather be lucky than statistically correct, or at least.
And obviously you can't always make the right decision like that when you're playing in games. But basically, I just needed to get as close to statistically accurate as possible when I'm playing. That's why I said, like, I think this is the tournament that I probably played the worst out of all of them. Because I know that how fine some of those decisions are, and I know I didn't get all of them right.
No, but I mean, I think that still you played really well. You were under time pressure, under a lot of stress, so no wonder why maybe you didn't get that extra 10%. So yeah, whatever. So I just wanted also for the people watching this video to understand a little bit why we consider that Alakazam is such a powerful deck, and I think that it has everything that a one price deck has, and even more. Because of course, for one pricers, unless you bench Fesandipity or something like that, you are kind of forcing your opponent to at least take 6 KOs, at least. Unless, of course, you are going against Dragapult or against something like that. Then, as you said at the beginning, you can literally scale up to any number that you want in the format. So you have a Mega Lucario in front of you, you have a Mega Kangaskhan, no problem. It's really not an issue for Alakazam. But then, which I think that's one of the reasons why the deck really stands out, is that I feel that it's one of the very few one-price decks that has a very powerful draw engine. Because I cannot remember or I cannot think of another one-price deck that is as consistent as Alakazam once it has been set up.
Yeah, it's what makes Alakazam so strong is that a lot of one price decks kind of tend to struggle with streaming attackers sometimes, right? Getting one attack after another. Whereas Alakazam, if you don't get disrupted, you already have everything you need for the next turn in your hand.
I think that the best comparison that I can make in my head is Honchkrow. Honchkrow is also a deck that can easily get rid of a Mega Evolution Pokemon in just one hit, but then it is very difficult to keep that amount of aggression coming the following turns just because you run off steam. However, with Alakazam, as long as you are, a little bit careful with the resources that you have in board, the resources that you have in your deck and in your hand, I feel that getting the combo pieces is always really, really easy. Now, but I really now want to touch on the two big weaknesses that people associate to Alakazam, and I think that, of course, I mean they are weaknesses because of a reason. One is the cards that stop damage counters from being placed, and the other are disruption cards, or the cards that somehow reduce the amount of cards that you have in hand. So can you maybe speak a little bit more about them? Like, how harmful are Articuno or Mist Energies for Alakazam?
Yeah, so both of these are very legitimate weaknesses of the deck. And I don't think either of them are things that you absolutely cannot get around, but you need to be very careful and very precise with your play into these kind of decks. So I'll start with Mist Energy. Right, obviously, a lot of decks are playing Mist Energy right now, like Lopunny and Crustle, right? And even Garchomp with the Rocky Energy. But since you are playing the Enhanced Hammer, is kind of countering that a little bit to deal with those energies. And you have Dedenne, so you can reuse Enhanced Hammer as many times as you need to, really, until you run them out of the energy that's preventing you from attacking. And then, fortunately, most of those decks are high prize Pokemon like Lopunny, so you're able to win with the remaining attacks. So Mist Energy is not so much of a problem. I think Articuno is probably the scarier option, right? There's no Dedenne loop I can do to stop Articuno from working. So then you have very awkward choices. Versus a Honchkrow, sometimes if they try and play with an all one price board, right? Like just try and attack with Murkrow, you have some options with attacking with the Dunsparce, because it does actually one-shot Murkrow. It just takes a little while, and you can also try, and then for Mewtwo is a little different because Mewtwo takes 2 attachments to attack, right? Takes the basic energy and the rocket energy, so that one's a little easier sometimes, since you can use Dedenne with Handheld Fan and looping Enhanced Hammer, so that when they hit into your Dedenne, you're actually taking out 2 energy, right? So then they're not going to be able to attack for the next turn, which gives you 2 turns of Dedenne to recover 2 cards before you need to attack again. And then you can start spamming boss's orders with the Dedenne as well, and basically just try and run them out of the Rocket's energy so they have to play with Tarantula. and the Spidops line, which then you can attack with Alakazam. So it's definitely doable to win versus both Mist Energy and Articuno. You just really need to lean heavily on the Dedenne, and you need to play very carefully. You cannot waste any cards.
I think that this is something that that everyone that wants to play Alakazam needs to get a tattoo of, which is, yes, it is true that fighting against Articuno or Mist Energy is going to give you a rough time, but I also have the feeling that if the Alakazam player knows what they are doing, they are going to be able to overcome most of the, let's say, more average players or players that are not that experienced with that specific matchup, because the Den can really recycle anything, and at the end of the day, you can just you can get them out of resources with boss's orders. And it is funny because I've been in a lot of heated discussions with many friends that they went even as far as to include Kangaskhan's in their Alakazam builds just for the chance of, attacking over Articuno. And it's like, no, this is completely defeating the purpose of the deck. Don't try to make the deck something that it is not. And then the other, sorry.
The most important thing, I think, is just to accept, yes, we don't really want to play against this deck, but we have options into it, so it's not worth ruining our deck into other matchups just to feel a little better into those. You're realistically not going to hit more than 1 or 2 in any given tournament. And as long as you try your best to get a tie or a win out of it, it should be all right.
And also, I've always thought that with this type of decks that have such a specific or a bad matchup against other decks, if you just hit 3 Team Rocket's Articuno in a row, it's not your day. So you just go home, relax, take a shower, and call it a day. That's it. It's not your day.
Yeah.
So just move on.
Most decks have something like that, right? Even Dragapult. If you hit 3 crusts in a row, it's not your day. So I think... And it's not really worth ruining the Dragapult deck to beat Crustle, because then you're going to lose to the other Dragapults. So
exactly, 100%. And then the other, it's kind of more like a warning from my side. You just spoke about it. That bear in mind that it's not going to be the same to play just Alakazam in a small tournament, maybe at your local place, than trying to run it into a regional and play it through 11 rounds. Because your head is going to explode. There are decks that are a little bit more linear, and they are kind of easier to play or to pilot because the amount of actions or the amount of directions that you can decide throughout the game are much more limited. But however, playing Alakazam, I don't know, didn't you faint once you finished the tournament? Because I would have 100%. I would have just collapsed it.
Thankfully, my friends were with me, so they kind of made sure I got some dinner and back to the hotel okay. So thanks to them, I was all right. But you definitely would need to have a support network if you're planning to play out.
I'm going to clip this. So you need to have a support network if you want to play Alakazam. Yeah, that is the highlight of the video. Now, I agree 100%. Which actually takes me to the next question, because this is something that I always ask to people that record these videos with me. From my point of view, there are decks that are easier to learn. There are others that are a little bit trickier. There are other decks that are more for players that to play aggressively. There are others that play a little bit more in the control side. So do you think that there is a specific type of player that would benefit the most from Alakazam?
Yeah, definitely. To play Alakazam, you need to be very patient. So people who like to play very aggressive decks like Raging Bolt or Lucario, right, start attacking as soon as it's possible to, probably don't fit super well with Alakazam, because a lot of the times with Alakazam, even if you're able to get the knockout, it doesn't make sense to, right? You could be putting yourself at risk of Unfair Stamp or another disruption card that you're not ready to handle yet. And sometimes it just makes more sense to wait a turn when you can stabilize your board a little bit better before going in. So definitely need to be patient. And then I think another really core characteristic of Alakazam players that are successful with the deck is that they have very like mathematical and analytical thinking almost, that they're able to think through the entire turn when they're looking at their opening hand, right? You need to be able to plan out all of your actions before you take any, because if you mess up and you're 20 damage short, it will very much punish you. So you really need to be thinking ahead. So kind of like almost like chess, right? Where you need to plan out your next 5 moves before you take this one. So yeah, I think people who like thinking ahead and are patient, Alakazam is a really good fit for them.
Now that you mention it, a really good friend of mine, we actually went together to high school. He is now trying to play a little bit more competitively into BCG. And the funny part is that he's a professor at university on statistics. So you can imagine how quick he's able to run the maths in his head. But he loses every single game because he's so obsessed with playing rogue decks. He plays meme Pokemon and he's like, no, I'm just here to have fun. I don't care about me having this amount of probabilities to... So it's like, come on, use your superpower.
Play Alakazam.
Actually, I will. 100%. I'm going to send him this video. No, but he's going to crush it. He will be able to play statistically perfect, like every single round. So, but yeah, 100%. Okay, so then the other thing, and this is really a part of the video that I was really excited to discuss with you. I feel that, and I don't know, in my head, these memes made sense, but or were funny, but maybe they are not. The thing is that if you think very simplistically about Alakazam, maybe you think that it's just a deck that all it needs to do is to accumulate cards in hand and just attack. But it is not only the sequencing, the extremely difficult sequencing that goes into Alakazam, but also it is how to read what's happening on the game, because sometimes overventing or sometimes going into a route that is not exactly what you need can really cost you the game. So I have seen many people saying very like, saying stuff like, no, if we play against Team Rocket's Articuno, we just lose. So I'd love your opinion to understand whether those are myths or those are the reality. So for instance, do we just lose if our opponent plays a Shadow? Or how damaging is hand disruption to Alakazam?
Yeah, so I think it all depends on whether you are prepared for it, right? The biggest thing with Alakazam is that we really don't want to get disrupted early. We don't want them to be disrupting us when we've only had 1 or 2 turns and we haven't gotten a chance to build up our board state or thin out our deck at all. So that's why Unfair Stamp is such a scary card. And we really, against decks that play Unfair Stamp, it just makes sense to keep passing or attacking with Elgyem or Dedenne until you have Genesect down, because you need to be able to protect yourself from that early disruption. Once you get into red card range, right, we can go from 4 to 2 cards. 2 prize cards left, so we only need 1 more KO at the point where they're going to play red card, and then it's much less scary because we only need to find 1 more knockout. At that point, we don't care as much what our board state looks like after that. We just need to piece together the last knockout. And also, if you're able to block the Unfair Stamp and just need to worry about red card, you're going to have enough time to develop your board before that. So you can, hold the Dunsparce or even 2 for the red card so that you have some draw already on the board once you get that hand, right? Because that already takes you, if you have 2 Dudunsparce saved and you get your 3+1 from the red card, that's already 10 cards before you've done anything during your turn. So you're able to recover really quickly. So I don't think disruption is that problematic. As long as you don't overdraw, right? Once you hit the number you need and have played the cards that you want, stop using the Dunsparce so that you can have that to recover. And then Zoroark, so this one is a little bit scarier, right? Because instead of just having the cards go back in their deck, they're just gone. But I think that we are definitely still able to deal with it. We just need to be very careful about how many cards we're drawing. You don't want to have anything more than the absolute minimum to knock out the Pokemon in our hand. right? If we're playing against a Zoroark, for example, that's a deck that commonly runs Zerosic, we don't want to have 20 cards in our hand, we want to have 14 cards in our hand, right? We don't want to, if they Zerosic us, we don't want to lose more cards than we need to. And as long as you're hanging on to those cards that kind of replenish your deck, like Sacred Ash and Lana's Aid, you should be all right.
Did you?
But if you're playing multiple Zerosic, then it can get a little scary. But Alakazam can definitely handle one.
That is exactly what I had in mind. Did you ever play Night March?
Sorry, what was the question?
Did you ever play a deck that was called Night March?
I know what it does. I haven't played it.
Okay, well, it was the best deck in the world, one of my favorite decks in the history, and basically what it did, it accumulated damage depending on the amount of other Night March Pokemon that were on the discard pile. So at some point they released a card that I don't remember what it was called, Karen or something. No, I think it was Karen. Karen would return all Pokemon from the discard pile to the deck, and people were assuming that just playing one copy of that card was going to be enough to completely win the matchup. And when I played it, I realized that as long as I kept my resources and didn't go all in, I could easily survive at least one Karen, maybe even two, if I was careful enough. So I think that with Xerosic, it's a similar situation. If you think that your opponent has Xerosic, and if you play accordingly, I think that you can still win, even if they shadow 10 cards away from your hand.
Absolutely. You just need to be careful though. But that's the nice thing about best of 3 is that even if you don't expect it in the first game, you will have that knowledge for games 2 and 3 so that you can play more cautiously.
Yeah, 100%. And then it is also not a card that it's played in every single deck. You are not going to run, and if your opponent is playing 2 copies of Xerosic, good for them. There is not much really to do. So I think that we have already more or less covered it. But I think that the 3 most common cards that you can come across in an average tournament, if you're playing Alakazam, are going to be Unfair Stamp, Special Red Card, and perhaps Judge. But I don't think that there is a deck right now that can play more than these 3 cards that can disrupt your hand. So according to what you said, you can prepare not to be stamped with Genesect. Then the window in which your opponent can use a Special Red Card, it can be controlled somehow. And what about Judge? Is that something that really harms you?
This was actually the #1 goal of Nighttime Mine, was to stop Judge, which sounds very strange, but I will explain. So basically the goal of the Nighttime Mine and the Elgyem and the Handheld Fans is to force your opponents to need to play Crispin, right? If they need to play Crispin to get enough energies every turn, then they can't Judge you. And similar, even if they have the energy, right, but they still have the Nighttime Mine, they might need to Lily to find the stadium. So we're basically making it as uncomfortable as possible for them to play Judge. Basically saying, okay, if you want to Judge me, you need to choose between playing a Judge and getting an attack off. So I think that's why before Red Card was printed, Dragapult just basically stood no chance into Alakazam, because I can block your Unfair Stamp with Genesect, and I can make it so your Judge costs you an attack. Which just makes it really, really hard for them to survive, right? If I'm already knocking out a Dragapult and, you're going to attack me, great, but it's not going to do anything, because I get to keep my hand. So I don't think that Judge is as effective against Alakazam in Dragapult, just because it's able to create a reliance on other supporters. Red Card is effective, but I know that Alakazams are now playing more ways to deal with Red Card, right? To NAIC, I played an Airy, which really helps deal with the Red Card. And you can control it so that, I know I only need 1 more knockout when you play it. But yeah, Dragapults definitely need to be playing, I'd say, at least 3 disruption cards to stand a chance into Alakazam.
How nice it sounds to say, no, Dragapult needs to really touch against me if they want to stand a chance against me. That is wonderful. And then I think that you also talk about this. Articuno, Mist Energy. Some people consider that if they see an Articuno, they just need to scoop. But you explain it. There are different ways in which you can deal with Articuno. I guess that what really makes the difference is you really knowing the matchup, and also your opponent knowing what a good Alakazam player is going to do, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of Rocket players, if your opponent flips over an Abra, they're just going to go, yay, I won, right? They're not going to expect you to still try and fight back. So if you go at them with this really aggressive Dedenne control plan, right, just spamming as many bosses orders and enhanced hammers and handheld fans as you possibly can to try and remove their rocket energies, they're not going to have been preparing for that. And they might not have been playing as cautiously as they should have been.
I love that. I think that that is one of the reasons why you can still stand a chance. Also, I ran some numbers. Well, these come from Limitless, of course, as you can imagine. And I was looking at the matchups, the worst matchups for Alakazam, or at least the worst matchups from a metagame perspective. And according to this, the matchup against Mewtwo's Rocket is really bad. So is the one against Crustle. And I was a little bit surprised because honestly, yes, of course, Articuno doesn't really help, Mist Energy doesn't really help, but I don't know why, but I was under the impression that maybe if you really knew what you are doing with Alakazam, I don't think that these matchups are so unfavored. I don't know.
Crustle, definitely not. Especially, well, I think Crustle kind of depends on the build. If you play Dedenne, which you absolutely should be because that card is insane, then I don't think Crustle is bad at all, right? Crustle is very limited in their energy attachments. They can only attach one energy per turn, and they don't have a way to accelerate. And they're special energy. So as long as you get a Dedenne in the active with an Enhanced Hammer, and you can find an Enhanced Hammer quickly, you can literally just Enhanced Hammer every single time they attach an energy, and they will never attack.
And this is exactly what you did in the finals. We're going to speak a little bit about it. Now, what I would love for you to explain us is your thought process about building this amazing 60-card list, which the very first time that I saw it, I didn't know exactly your list. I was watching your stream, and I just saw the then go recycling hammers all over again. And at some point I was like, what is this girl playing? Is she playing like Alakazam, or is she playing like a weird control deck? What is this? Why did you decide to approach Alakazam in such a way with so many control elements?
Yeah, so it doesn't always work out this well, but I absolutely love fusing control decks with normal attacking decks. I actually started off the season playing a control style Dragapult where I played a Gastrodon and Elgyem, and it was just such a fun time. So that was kind of the inspiration behind this, right? Like, I'm gonna play Nighttime Mine and Elgyem, so on those turns where I don't want to knock out Dragapult or I'm not able to, that I can go for a control option, right? I'm effectively making them cost 2 more energy when I go Elgyem Nighttime Mine. And it's just very hard to deal with that. And the other strong part of that is that if you are making them cost 2 more energy, that means that they need to Crispin, so they can't boss you. So on their turn that you missed a knockout, you're now saying, okay, that's fine, because your attack has to be on an Elgyem. You're not KOing my Dunsparce, you're not KOing my Alakazam, you're not bossing my Fez, you're just killing an Elgyem. So kind of just really limiting their options on the turn that you missed an attack is the goal of Elgyem and Dedenne. And the Dedenne is also a really strong card. I actually love this card. I think it is fantastic because it can play both to your aggressive attacking games and into your control games, right? You can loop for the attacking games. You can recover your Lana's Aid or Sacred Ash if you were going to run out of Pokemon. Or you can grab back a boss's orders if you need one more boss to win, right? Rather than taking 2 1-prize attacks with an Alakazam. You can take 1 2-prize attack to limit your Alakazams that you need to use and to limit their disruption options. So I think it is such a powerful card in the attacking games, and then in the control games, you can reuse Enhanced Hammer and Handheld Fan and Boss's Orders again, and it's just so strong because of its flexibility. And it's an awesome starter too, right? Any game you start it, you can grab back your turn 1 Hilda or your turn 1 Dawn or Poké Pad. So it's just such a flexible card, which is fantastic. And then Elgyem, his goal is really just to force the Dragapult to play Crispin. I don't want to deal with Judge or Boss, and Elgyem is great at making sure they don't have 2 energy ready to go. So that's kind of his goal. It's also, I should note, it's also really, really strong into Slowking.
Into Slowking?
Into Slowking, yeah. There's this really weird line where if you can stick all 3 basic Psychic Energy on this Kamuchim, they get stuck there, and they're not able to Wonders patch the whole game, which means that they can only attach 1 energy per turn, which has to be a special energy, which means then you can go in with the Dedenne Enhanced Hammer and just loop that. So you can actually beat Slowking very easily using Elgyem and Dedenne.
Actually, that reminds me, the very, very first tournament game that I ever won, Pokemon tournament that I ever won, it was when Seismitoad was like running, wreaking havoc. And I remember I didn't have the budget to play a really strong meta deck, so I had this weird fairy deck, and there was a Sylveon card that it only did one thing, which was move 1 energy from one of your active Pokemon to another Pokemon. So because Seismitoad only played 4 energies to attack, which was the double colorless energy, I was able to move all the energies in my opponent's deck to like a long Garbodor, and I won just because of that. Yeah. So yeah, that reminds me of this play that you are mentioning with Elgyem. No, that's actually quite funny against Slowking. And then I really need to ask you, is really Nighttime Mine better than Battle Cage?
I think so, because if we think about it this way, right? If we're saying they're going to miss a stadium, if they hit the stadium bump, we don't care what happens, right? Battle Cage or Nighttime Mine isn't doing anything. So if we say they're going to miss the stadium bump, right? So if we have a Battle Cage, they're still going to knock out the active Alakazam. They're just not going to put any bench damage. But if we have a Nighttime Mine, a lot of the times they're not going to be able to even Phantom Map. They're going to have to Jet Headbutt. And we would much prefer to keep the active Alakazam than to, have the Alakazam knocked out but just protect the bench damage. And even if they are able to get a Phantom Dive off, if they miss the stadium bump, that means that it needs to have 3 energy, which means that their next turn is going to be terrible. After you knock out this Dragapult, they're going to have a really hard time. So it kind of just keeps, like, every turn that they, commit 3 energies to a Dragapult, it's basically just like they're procrastinating the problem to next turn, because they're just not dealing with it.
Maybe Dragapult needs to start playing, what is it called? Jamming Tower or something? Because honestly, I don't think that, considering your list, I don't think that the Dragapult with just 2 random stadiums is able to really do well against this specific type of build. That is my feeling, at least. So
yeah, I think it was really, really tough energy-wise for the Dragapult I played against in Indianapolis. They usually got 1 Phantom Dive off max.
Yeah, I don't remember. Well, I think it was one of your top games. It was against a Dragapult, and there were so many games in which, or so many moments in the game in which he was not able to Phantom Dive. He just, what was it? Jet Headbutt. Jet Headbutt. That is it.
Yeah.
So, and at that time, you know that you have already won, which actually takes me to something that you have already answered, but I think that it is important to make the message clear, which is, can we actually beat Dragapult?
Absolutely. I mean, Dragapult is, I feel like 1-prize decks are so infamous for being terrible into Dragapult, right? They're just known, they take 2 knockouts and they keep killing your whole board and you never get an attack. It's terrible. So we're basically like flipping that on them. I'm the one who's comfortably attacking and you're the one who's scrambling to get an attack together, which is basically what the Nighttime Mine and the Elgyem are trying to do. They're trying to really weaken the early game of the Dragapult to just make it really hard for them to get really aggressive early attacks on us. And then if we're getting well set up, right, I can evolve all my Abras up out of Phantom Dive range in that time so that all they're really able to do is just KO the active and put some sprinkle damage, and they're not really taking 2 prizes. So at that point, Dragapult is trading negatively into Alakazam, which makes it really strong.
And it makes Alakazam, well, I keep pronouncing it like the Spanish, in the Spanish way, but whatever. It makes actually the deck a really good choice for a tournament, considering that, 40%, 50% of the games that you're going to be playing against are going to be Dragapult. So I think that that is really, really important. However, I think that also it is important to acknowledge that as strong as Alakazam is, it cannot beat Dragapult without being prepared against it. Like if you just go with a build that maximizes consistency, that only runs, I don't know, like a couple of enhanced hammers, and that's it, I don't think that you stand a chance against Dragapult and the damage counters that it spreads.
No, definitely not. I think it's really important. Well, that's kind of the strength of Alakazam, is that it has a lot of flexible card slots. It doesn't have that many cards that it absolutely has to play. It doesn't care what's in its hand, it just needs cards. So you actually have a lot of slots that can be used to tech for Dragapult, which is definitely the most valuable place to use them. I think Dragapult was 50% of day 2 in NAIC or something ridiculous like that. So I think it's definitely worth to use those flexible card slots for Dragapult, and it will just destroy you if you don't, if you're not prepared for it.
So what we are seeing now here, Keris, is one of the most iconic games that you have played this season, and you are going against Crastle. Funny thing is that my boyfriend, who he had played Pokemon for so long, but now he's a little bit kind of like retired, he was watching the game with me, and he was saying, how is this girl going to even win against something that runs 4 missed energies? And I was like, wait and see, because I think that there is no way that she's going to lose this game. And actually, I would love if you could tell us a little bit more about the strategy that you follow, because yes, you ended up winning the entire thing, but I think that, I don't know, I don't want to say that Rahul didn't stand a chance, but it was very hard for him to get over your approach and then.
Yeah, so I mean, Rahul is an excellent player as well, and he knows that I know my lines into Crustle. So he's basically thinking, I need to try and rush this game as much as I possibly can, right? He was trying to take as many prize cards as he could before I managed to get to my Dedenne Enhanced Hammer. And I basically at the start of game said, I don't really care about setting up attacks. I don't care about my board state. I just need to find an Enhanced Hammer. Because once I find the first Enhanced Hammer, that's all the Enhanced Hammers I need with Dedenne. So I basically said, I'm just going to try and turbo draw through my deck as fast as I possibly can to find an Enhanced Hammer, and then just keep looping it. Ideally, you would find a Enhanced Hammer turn 1 or 2 before they even get 3 energies attached, right? Because then they're never going to be able to get an attack off. And then I think both of these games were actually very interesting because I didn't manage to quickly get to an Enhanced Hammer, so I had to use them once he was already attacking, which isn't ideal because then he is still able to attach another one and then keep attacking. So then it gets very close.
I think that one of your Enhanced Hammers was in the prize cards, right?
Yeah, for the scene. And so, yeah, I mean, as you can see there, I'm just trying to draw that, just trying to widen my board as much as possible to draw lots of cards.
So, because I see that the very first thing that you did was selecting the Den, because I guess that what you were trying to achieve is get the Enhanced Hammer as soon as possible and then loop with the Den, right?
Yep.
And then after that, honestly, there is not much that your opponent can do, because I don't think that even healing works at this stage. I don't remember if he runs Shadow, but
he does run Rosic, yeah. So that can make it a little closer, but you don't need to do that much damage to knock out Crustle, so as long as you're careful with how many cards you have in your hand, it should be all right.
Yeah, and then there is a moment here in the game that I think that it's really interesting because what you do, if I remember correctly, is you are using the fan to kind of make sure that your Crastle or that his Crastle is not able to keep attacking. And once you have get rid of Crastle, as like it is no longer a threat, then all you do is start launching KOs against the Kangaskhan, if I remember correctly. So you are able to get a very quick game one. How were you feeling when you were playing this game? Were you confident about your chances of winning? Were you scared?
So I was confident in my lines in the matchup. I know if I'm able to find an Enhanced Hammer quickly, I'm in a very favorable position. But I was still very nervous because if my Dedenne is prized or if I can't get to an Enhanced Hammer, I basically am just going to get clobbered. I don't stand a chance. So I was very nervous, like going through that first initial deck search, just like, please be in here, Dedenne, please don't beat me. So really hoping that was there. And then I actually was pretty nervous at the start of game one because I did have a dead opening hand. I had all basics and no evolution Pokemon. Which is really, really bad in this matchup, right? Because if he's able to get ahead on energy attachments and get, 5 energies on a Crustle, there's not much I can do. Because my Enhanced Hammers aren't going to stick. So I was pretty nervous. I think turn 3, I managed to get out of it. So then I was feeling okay. But before that, it was a little scary.
No, I can imagine. Can you actually win this game without the Den? Or is it impossible?
It is possible. But you need to find the Enhanced Hammers very quickly before he's able to find 4 Mist Energy, right? You can get rid of the 2 Mist Energies without the Dedenne. So if you're able to get attacking with Alakazam quickly in a Mist Energy, it can be okay. And you can take a couple prizes before getting into the Dedenne, before you would need it. But generally, it's very bad if you prize the Dedenne.
Yeah, I can imagine because Elgyem doesn't really do that much, right? It just moves the problem.
Mist blocks.
Oh, true. I always forget about it. Well, you can still hand. What is the card? Like the hand thingy, but still, it doesn't do much. Well, but fortunately for you, I think that in both games, you were able to get through your hammers. Rahul was doing something which makes a lot of sense, which was trying to use or to leverage the biggest HP Pokemon that he has in the deck. But in the end, at some point, how many cards did you have in hand here? Like 40? What is that?
It's like 25 when I KO'd the Kangaskhan.
Oh my god. Well, that is...
I just need to keep drawing cards here, right? Like, I know the Enhanced Hammers are in there, so as soon as I draw them, then that's it.
How did you feel when you find the final Enhanced Hammer and you launch the final attack? How did you feel?
Oh my gosh, I didn't believe it. Like, it was such a unreal moment. This was a deck that I, built 5 days ago, and I had just started playing, and, winning a regional had been a goal and dream of mine for so many years. So it was just amazing having that moment, especially with a deck that I loved playing so much, right? I got to combine my love of control decks with an attacking deck, and it was just so fun to play. So the win with that deck as well meant a lot to me.
Well, congrats. I think that it is something that you need to be really, really proud of, not only because of the deck that you crafted, which it was clearly a really, really good choice against all the decks that were part of that tournament, because of how well you play, because of how difficult the deck is to pile up, and of course that if you didn't already have it, that gave you 100% the invite to San Francisco. So, well, congratulations again. I can tell you that I was kind of shouting in my on my to my TV, and then I just wanted to ask you a little bit about Worlds this year. How you are? First of all, how are you feeling about Worlds this year? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Just chilling?
A bit of both. I have never had a good Worlds run, so that's something I'm really, really pushing for. Yeah, I'm trying to explore all of the available options, right? Not trying to lock in on a deck too early. Make sure there's not something in the format we're missing. Looking if there's any, better deck that people aren't aware of first. And then if that doesn't work, then I'm really going to just try and fully optimize a deck that I feel comfortable with. So probably Dragapult, Alakazam, or maybe even Grimmsnarl.
Oh, really? Oh, well, you heard it first, guys. If Grimmsnarl ends up winning the entire thing, which I hope that it does. When I've only played 2 Worlds in my life, and the second one was so difficult because they decided to make the rotation before Worlds, so no one really knew what was going on. It was the tag team era, and it was a really challenging tournament. What do you expect players to do for Worlds this year? Do you think that they are going to try to get creative, and we are going to run into another Mega Audino or / Iron Thorns kind of situation where people try to counter the meta? Or do you think that people are going to stick with Dragapult and all that we are going to find is Dragapult mirrors?
I think it's going to be really interesting because we know that everyone who earned their Worlds invite this year is a good player, right? And they really think about their deck choice, especially for a tournament like Worlds. So anybody who sends Dragapult is sending Dragapult because they think it's the best deck. But anybody who's sending a deck other than Dragapult is picking it because they think it beats Dragapult, right? You're not going to pick a deck outside of Dragapult if you don't think it beats it. So I think it's going to be very interesting seeing what kind of wins out between those. And I would not be too surprised to see a Mega Audino situation. I'm trying to make one myself, so we'll see.
Well, I mean, Mega Audino is in the format again, so maybe, who knows? And isn't there this item coming up, what is it called? Yeah, the one that allows you to reflip as much as you want. So, yeah, maybe, I don't know.
You know, Mega Audino.
You never know. But I honestly am also really interested. I've been speaking with a couple of friends that are also preparing for Worlds. They have been telling me that they think that Pitch Black is actually a better set that people are giving it credit for. I don't know. I think that I haven't really tested everything. I don't know if hide and seek or hide and sneak or whatever the name of these, like this Night March type of deck with ghosts is going to do. But I think that something is clear, and is that for this deck, whatever you play, you need to make sure that you have a plan against Dragapult. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to get to the top positions. I have the feeling that even if Dragapult is certainly not winning every single tournament, it is the deck that defines the format. So whatever you pick, you need to make sure that it has a chance against Dragapult. So, yeah.
100%. And I think it's going to be really interesting because a lot of current Dragapult lists have been more teched for the mirror, right? They're playing that Enhanced Hammer build, and I don't think they're going to be able to get away with that for Worlds because there's going to be a lot of other decks that they need to deal with, and Enhanced Hammer is just not as useful against, like Raging Bolt, right? So I think that I wouldn't be too surprised to see Dragapult sort of pivot from a mirror-focused build to focusing on the rest of the meta to make sure that it isn't just getting pushed down to the bottom.
What advice, because I keep getting this comment or this question every day. There are so many people that are willing or that want to step into the competitive scene that everything seems a little bit scary for them. And they don't know whether, they have enough skill or if they should already start booking travels to another places. Do you have an advice for those people that are thinking about getting into the competitive play for the very first time?
I think if you're just starting out in competitive play, I would recommend just picking one deck that you are very interested in and you have fun playing and really sticking with that at first. Because rather than focusing on, improving your skills at 3 decks, just focus on one. And then once you get really good at that deck, right, and start seeing some, results that you're happy with, then maybe try branching out. And I think probably just play as many games of Pokemon as you can. That's the best way to improve. It just really,
if you have the spare 10 minutes, anytime, just log on to PCCGL and play a game. And don't be intimidated by it. Like, everyone, even if you're playing against a really strong player, I mean, they're just another person. They have just as much of a chance as bricking as you, probably. And you could come up with an amazing game-winning play too. So I would say, don't be too intimidated by it, and just practice as many games as you can.
And do you have another or a final advice for those that after seeing the video, they really, really want to pick Alakazam and they want to master it? Any advice of where they can start, apart from, of course, watching all your streams?
Yeah, so I mean, Alakazam is a really hard deck to master. I don't think I'd mastered it yet, but I'm trying.
Really? No, don't say that, Karen. No, don't say that. Like, if you yourself say that you have not mastered Alakazam, like, people are going to say, what chance do I even stand?
Well, I think that I don't think you need to have completely mastered it for you to be able to play it at a very competitive level. But I think that I'd still definitely miss some things when I'm playing, which I'm trying to fix. But I would say you got to be committed to it, right? You can't, you need to understand that, your first 20 games with Alakazam might not go so well as you're still getting used to it. So you need to kind of stick with the deck. And then I would also recommend, like, just writing down what went wrong in that match, right? Like, if you lost to a red card and you didn't get anything useful off of it, then say, like, okay, was there anything that I could have done to protect myself from this red card? Was there a Dudunsparce that I could have held last turn, right? And just really thinking about how the game went wrong is really going to help you. Because I think a big part of Alakazam is predicting what your opponent is going to do during the next turn and how you need to prepare yourself to deal with that. And then also just focusing on improving your deck composition. So, like, for example, like, if you've got 20 cards in your hand and you're playing against a Dragapult, right? You can play 4 cards, right? And maybe you only need 2 to set up your combo this turn. So then those remaining cards, look if you have any Buddy Poffins or anything else that you should be thinning out of your deck so that if you get disrupted, you don't draw back into it. A lot of people don't associate Alakazam with thinning, but it's actually important when you get into a really high hand count. Alakazam is definitely a deck where you need to focus on the little decisions, because that's what makes the big plays happen. So,
wow. I mean, I know I am a more aggressive type of player, so I know that even if I have a lot of fun playing Alakazam, I don't think that this is something that I will play into a tournament. The last big tournament that I played was UIC 2 years ago, and I decided to go with Dragapult those night, and by the end of the 9th round, I didn't even remember my name, so I should have just picked Miraidon and everything would have been easier. So, Keris, we've reached the end. I don't know if there is any last remarks or comments that you have. All I have left to say is that I am incredibly humbled and happy to have had the opportunity to speak with you. I hope that, because I tell you, like, the Spanish community, they are crazy about you. So I think that people are going to be really, really surprised about seeing you here, because all my videos are in Spanish, just because I made the decision, of always recording in Spanish, not because I cannot speak English, but because I wanted to create content in the Spanish. But yeah, I really, really want to thank you for your time and ask you if there is a final comment that you'd like to make.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. And yeah, if you are deciding to practice Alakazam, just shoot me a question on X if you need to. I try and answer as many as I can share some more insights. So if you are looking to play Alakazam, just ask me. And
can they book a coaching session with you?
Yeah, they can. But if it's just a quick question, you don't need to. But if you want a more in-depth, how do I sequence this crazy turn, that's also an option.
Just so that you know, I'm not trying to put any ideas on you guys, but you remember Emma, who did the Raging Bolt guide with us a couple of weeks ago. She's Kerry's student. And she said that everything that she was able to accomplish, it's because Kerry's helped her a lot. So I'm just saying, if you want to win the next SP of your country, I'm seeing a pattern here. No pressure here. No, but honestly, Keris, I think that it is fantastic. Everything that you are achieving, it also clearly shows that you enjoy the game, and I think that you're going to do amazing in Worlds this year.
Thank you.
Okay, so with this, we reached the end of the interview. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. I will make sure that everything has subs so that you can follow in case that your English is not very sharp. And thank you so much. And well, we'll see each other in another video very soon. Thank you so much, Keris.
Thank you.